guys, this is Phil the MMA Dude, back with the Split Decision Podcast, episode number 18, here with my brilliant co-host, the Fight Geek. Fight Geek, how you doing today, man?
Doing excellent. Thanks for asking, Phil.
I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear. That really warms my heart. So we have got a huge episode today, folks. We've got the UFC Nashville Recap, the UFC Philadelphia Preview, listener questions, and a whole bunch of other news. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about there. We're going to tackle it later in the show, but a lot of breaking news this week. But let's start off, Fight Geek, with UFC Nashville's main event. Anthony Showtime Pettis knocks out Stephen Wonderboy Thompson in spectacular fashion with 5 seconds left in the second round of the fight. What did you make of it?
Wow. That's my first impressions. Wow. It was a one-sided fight leading up to that finish. I thought Wonderboy looked good. He was safe in and out. He was landing on Anthony Showtime Pettis. Pettis, give him credit, was tough, was staying in there, was continuing to attack the legs. And then, I actually looked away for a brief second and missed the finish in real time. But once I went back and kind of saw, I realized Wonderboy was on the ground and he was completely out. And, there was an iconic shot of Pettis licking his gloves, and I was really dumbfounded at what had happened. And then they went back and showed the replay, and the fact that he caught Wonderboy with a Superman punch is just unbelievable. But this is what I said on Twitter that night, is this is why we watch MMA. This is why this is the greatest sport in the world, because it's so unpredictable. And in a split second, things can change. So second straight great, exciting main event in as many weeks. So I love the fight. I thought, I picked Wonderboy, and I think Wonderboy was having his way with Pettis up until that 1 second. But in this game, it only takes that 1 second. So awesome performance by Pettis. What did you think?
Yeah, I thought you put it pretty well. I mean, I really agree. I definitely think the Wonderboy was winning that fight just about up until the knockout. Frankly, he was piecing up Pettis with the jab. He was looking good. He was putting on the pressure. Pettis was definitely taking more damage. And, I won't lie. The one thing that I kept noticing throughout the fight, and I know that this is how Wonderboy fights, but I just kept thinking, man, this guy just got to get his hands up at some point. I mean, he does not put those hands up. And, he's winning the fight. He's dominating the fight. And then suddenly, boom, right? It's all over. Showtime with the Superman punch against the cage. He's jumping, back off the cage to do the Superman punch, and it was a Superman hook, really. And that was all she wrote. I thought it was an incredible finish, and I thought it was one of Showtime's most iconic knockouts of all time, frankly.
No doubt.
Right?
No doubt about it. Yeah, absolutely. And it really can't be said enough for Showtime about how tough he is. I know in the past he's taken every fight imaginable over his career. And for him to come in and kind of resurrect his career a bit here with a big win over Wonderboy, it's kind of like the perfect storm for him, The knockout was kind of fluky in a way. I went back and watched it so many times. The fact that he hits Wonderboy while Wonderboy doesn't have his back leg planted, it's just like a perfect timing for him to be knocked out. It's almost the same way that Anderson Silva got knocked out playing around with Weidman when he bent his back leg and kind of gave that ground. And when you're really stiff on your back leg, you're more susceptible to be knocked out. And Wonderboy was just kind of coming in with no footing and took that shot. And I mean, I would say, as you mentioned, that it's one of his Pettis' most iconic knockouts because Wonderboy was out cold on contact. And second week in a row, both guys' head hits the mat super hard. Till 2 weeks ago and Wonderboy this week, I felt like, they were out cold and then just dead weight with their head hitting the mat. So they were both just brutal knockouts.
Yep, absolutely. And then kind of piggybacking off of that, let me ask you this question. What is next for Anthony Pettis? Because boy, does he have a lot of options.
Yeah, he does have a lot of options. I'm just not quite sure what's the right option for him now with this kind of momentum, you know?
Yeah,
I don't think he's ready for a top 5 welterweight. I think it's clear he wasn't competing with the top lightweights. So how does he maximize kind of this fight? I'm not sure. I do think
he
if
just knocked out a top 5 welterweight though, Fight Geek.
he did, but can you imagine, we've seen him fight RDA. Can you imagine him in there with someone like Ponzinibbio? I just don't see that being an advantageous fight for him at this point. But you never know. So maybe, he'd want a name, though, after a fight like that. He's coming off of knocking out Wonderboy Thompson, who has a name. He's going to be looking for someone to build on that with. I don't know if a Ponzinibbio risk reward is that kind of fighter. So maybe it's back
Yeah,
down. Maybe it's back down at 155, but I'm not sure that that guy has presented himself. Maybe, and this is looking ahead, maybe he can angle for the winner of Barbosa versus Gaethje, maybe, but I don't think that's a great matchup for him at all. So,
so you think he should go back down to lightweight, huh?
well, I just don't see who he's going to fight at 170
Oh,
that matters at this point.
well, I'll tell you. I've got an idea in my head that I think is perfect.
Who?
Jorge Masvidal. Done.
But Masvidal is going to end up fighting Askren, in my opinion.
I heard Askren's getting forced to do the Robbie Lawler rematch. That's according to Dana.
I would love for that rematch to happen. But what if Robbie wins? Do we get a trilogy of that fight? I mean,
No, we don't. Of course not. Dana hates Askren and is just trying to get rid of him. Of course, there's no rematch. If he's just, and you know what? If Askren beats Lawler twice, he'll probably make him fight him a third time.
yeah, you never know. So, all right, well, we could do the Jorge Masvidal versus Anthony Pettis fight. I think that makes sense then at this point. But for Matt, actually, yeah, it does make sense because Masvidal is coming off the 2 losses. He has the big win. Pettis was coming off some rocky performances and has a big win. I think that actually makes sense. 2 former 155ers fighting for title contention in 170.
Yep, exactly.
So,
I'm
yeah,
glad I could convince you.
Yeah. So moving on to the co-main event, what did you think of Curtis Blades? And albeit not the most exciting performance in the world, very dominant victory over Justin Willis. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I thought it was a great win for Curtis Blades and a humiliating defeat for Willis. And before everyone says, "Oh, that's pretty harsh," don't be so harsh on Justin Willis. Well, look, Willis was acting like a total.
I said you
Exactly,
harsh.
right? No, me never,
Right.
never. No, but let's be honest. Willis was being a bully and a jerk. Those are the nice words I'm choosing to use. The entire fight week. I don't know if you heard Ariel Helwani's show and Curtis Blades on it, but he was talking about how Willis was talking about his father for 6 minutes, while they're backstage together. He was talking about how Willis sent this loser idiot fan to try to fight him at his hotel room. I mean, just ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, I heard a little bit of it, but not quite all that. But I haven't really been a fan of Willis since he's come onto the scene. I even thought he was a little disrespectful to Hunt, right? Didn't he beat Hunt in his last fight?
Yes.
So I thought he's had some weird quirks to him, but I thought that Curtis Blades looked incredibly focused and came out and just took care of business. I think that he relied on his dominant wrestling and wanted to make sure that he got that win. And it's pretty rare to see a heavyweight throwing another heavyweight around, but I think he did 3 or 4 throws that were like slams that were pretty cool.
Definitely. I was extremely impressed with Blades, and what I was even more impressed with was what he said to Willis at the very end of the fight, which was, and this is in quotes, "Go home, big titty, learn to wrestle."
But I thought his wrestling was supreme because he practices with Kane in DC.
Well, I heard DC doesn't even like him, so I don't even know how he's at AKA.
Yeah.
They kind of go back and forth.
They do go back and forth on social media. I was wondering that, like last year, they were kind of going back and forth, and I was like, do these guys like each other? Maybe they don't. Maybe he's just one of those guys.
I don't think they do.
So,
Mm-hmm.
All right. Was there anything else worth calling out? I'm going to call out the Macy Barber fight just because I was so impressed with Macy Barber as a 20-year-old prospect to weather the storm versus JJ Aldrich, and come back and not only win the fight, but finish her. I think Macy Barber is a very special prospect, and can't wait to see what she does next. What did you think of that performance?
I think to echo what you said, I think Macy is for real. I'm hesitant to say. I still need to see more before I'm ready to declare her a legitimate flyweight contender for the belt.
She's 20 years old with 6 fights. I mean,
I understand.
by the time she has 10 fights, it's safe to say she's probably going to be in title contention, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this is a
definitely.
combustible game. We know that, but from what she's shown, and when it comes to the females, you don't see a lot of strikers who finish fights. For a 20-year-old girl to be finishing fights, I find to be unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, I completely agree. And really quick, I'm not sure how I did with my official picks for the cards.
Oh,
Let me just check.
we go.
I don't remember.
Here we go.
Oh wait, I did 10-2. 10-2. What's up? Let's go. 10-2.
What's your record on the year, though?
I don't know. I know I averaged something crappy like 7-5.
10-2. 10-2, baby. So, congratulations.
I'm gonna talk.
You made some great picks this past week. I mean, these fights on the last couple weeks are just so razor thin to pick. People make picks and they act like they had some insight and they really knew. I mean, some of these fights, the circumstances that determine them are just razor thin. So, congratulations, Phil. Good week of picks.
Thank you. I know it's not going to happen again anytime soon, so I've got to take the W's when I can get them.
What did you think of Luis Peña's performance after missing weight? Any thoughts?
Yeah, good question. Honestly, I thought it was good.
It was underwhelming.
I thought it was good.
I thought it was a little underwhelming.
Yeah. Yes.
I keep waiting to see him implement a game plan that uses some of his skills, and he really doesn't seem to do that at this point. So, interested to see where he goes next. Don't want to really give him too much love until he can figure out how to make weight. So, he will be interesting to watch going forward. Another guy to call out is Marlon Chito Vera. This guy keeps getting better and better. Really started paying attention to him when the Brad Pickett fight, and he won that fight by stoppage. And then each and every fight, he just seems to get a little better, a little tougher, and he looked like $1 million this last fight. What'd you think?
Yeah, you only mentioning him because he was one of my 2 picks that I got wrong?
No, I'm mentioning him because I think that he was one of the best-looking fighters on the card.
No, I'm totally kidding. He absolutely was. All credit to Marlon Vera. He surprised me. I had Frankie winning that fight, and that obviously did not happen. That was an incredible TKO victory. All credit to Marlon Vera. You're right. He keeps getting better and better, and I can't wait to keep watching him.
Nice. So I will give you credit on the Jussier Formiga fight. He beat my guy Figueiredo, and you and Gary had picked Jussier Formiga.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Gary Tonin, who was our guest on episode 17, our last episode. Be sure to go back and check that episode out if you guys haven't yet. But in truth, this was such a close fight to call, Fight Geek, and the sole reason that I took Jussier Formiga was because Gary picked him, and as I said on that show, and I'll say it again here, I like Gary more than you.
Fair enough. Well, that about wraps up.
But I still love you, Fight.
This is a business relationship, Phil. The people know. So let's.
So it's awkward.
Very awkward. All right, let's move on to UFC Philadelphia. I like this card. What do you think of this card?
Yeah, you know what? I was making my picks today, and the first thing that jumped out at me was, wow, these fights are really tough to call.
Yeah, the cards this year have been so close. I want to go ahead and give the matchmakers credit. I feel like the matchmaking has been amazing in 2019. We've gotten so many close, tough matchups that can go either way. And those are really the intriguing fights that we tune in for, in addition to the big names, in my opinion. So you want to start at the top or you want to start at the bottom?
I think we should let's start at the top. I like starting at the top. So Justin, the highlight Gaethje fights Edson Barbosa. I think that it's interesting. I think this is going to be such a great fight. And I'm going to let you pick this one first. How do you see this playing out?
This is going to hurt to watch, but I am looking. I think everything about this fight is just going to hurt. Justin Gaethje, every fight he's been in has been a fight of the year contender. I 100% expect this to be a fight of the year contender. The one thing that really startles me is that Justin Gaethje is absorbing 10 strikes per minute in the UFC. And that frightens me versus someone like Edson Barbosa. If you let Edson Barbosa land 10 strikes per minute on you, I just don't see how you can last 5 rounds. And I love Justin Gaethje, but I'm going to go ahead and take Edson Barbosa by a 3rd round stoppage.
Damn Okay.
Sorry, man. I got to call it how I see it. And if Justin Gaethje can survive, 100 strikes from Edson Barbosa or more, then he's not human. He's just not human.
Yeah, I'm just annoyed because we do agree. And it's interesting because I've really evolved on this fight. When I first heard it announced, I thought, oh, Gaethje's got this. But, thought more about it, watched a little bit more fight footage on both gentlemen. And, you're right. I even though Barbosa hates to get, bullied with pace, which we know Gaethje's going to come forward like a crazy person, as he always does. I still think that Barbosa, and especially his leg kicks, are just going to be so brutal for Justin. And I actually see Barbosa stopping him as early as this second.
Yeah, I mean, it's just Justin Gaethje defies logic. He really does. So when you're watching him on tape and breaking him down versus someone like Barbosa, I mean, he just seems like he's going to get hit with everything. And with that being said, he got hit with everything from Eddie Alvarez and eventually fell in the 3rd round. I think that Barbosa's an even better striker than Eddie Alvarez, and he'll hit him so much that I think that Gaethje will eventually fall. So yeah, I wanted to take Gaethje. I love Gaethje, and I may even be rooting for Gaethje, but I just don't see how he can absorb 10 strikes per minute versus a striker like Edson Barbosa. Just my brain cannot wrap around that. So.
Yep. Okay. So next fight on the card, I think, is actually a very underrated fight. It's a middleweight fight between David Branch and Jack Hermansson. Now, this one, if you don't mind, I'll take it first since you got Barbosa Gaethje. But yeah, this is a tough one, right? I mean, Hermansson is no joke. He's extremely good at getting submissions, and what he's really even better at is finding ways to win. Now, having said that, I believe that David Branch is underrated. I think he's had some tough losses, but I see Branch getting this done via unanimous decision.
I think David Branch is the more seasoned fighter, has gone against a little more stiff competition. He's a Gracie black belt, I believe, former 2-weight champion from World Series of Fight, if I'm not mistaken. And I just think he's going to be able to put together a game plan. He has heavy hands as well. You could see he hurt Luke Rockhold when they fought. I'm going to take David Branch by split decision.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So I'll let you take this one. And this is, to me, this should have been the co-main event, in my personal opinion. Michael Johnson versus Josh Emmett. Who you got?
I agree. This could have been the co-main event, certainly off of name value. I'm going to take Michael Johnson in this fight. I think Emmett's coming off of a huge knockout loss. He's had a layoff. Team Alpha Male has some flux with their coaching situation. Haven't been having the best of luck in their win losses lately. Michael Johnson knows what he's good at. He's going to keep the distance. I'm expecting him to give Emmett some problems on the feet and win a split decision.
Oh, a split decision. So you've got it real close.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a close fight, and I don't think that Johnson will be able to put away Emmett, but I certainly think that there'll be some hesitancy with Emmett coming off that big knockout, especially versus a guy who can knock you out, and Michael Johnson, even though he really hasn't shown that power at 145. I'm taking Michael Johnson, like I said, via split decision. Close fights.
Yeah, you know what? So I was agreeing with you up until a few hours ago. All signs point to Michael Johnson winning this fight, but for reasons that I can't even fully explain, Fight Geek, I have Josh Emmett by third round stoppage. It's just a gut feeling. That's all I can say.
Well, it helped just more disagreement, so I appreciate it.
Well,
you got Emmett, I got Johnson.
Well, and the last thing I want to say about it is you touched on this for a second just now. You said that Johnson has not shown the same power at 145 that he used to show at 55, and I totally agree. And I think that's going to be his undoing. I think it will be a highly competitive fight. Perhaps even Michael Johnson is winning 2-0 going into the third, and I think Emmett's just going to catch him. But we'll see. We'll see. It's a tough one.
Stranger things have happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that moves on to the next fight, and I truly believe this should be the co-main event. Michelle Waterson versus Karolina Kowalkiewicz. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
So I think this should be the co-main event. This is actually the fight that probably intrigues me after the main event the most. I think these girls are super close in skill level. Both of them are, within the top 5 to 6 of their division. Big fan of both girls. Who do you got, Phil?
Yeah, first and foremost, I despise this fight because I am a huge fan of both fighters. So it's a little cringy for me. I love to root for both of them. But I was honestly very, very shocked by how many people on Twitter seem to be picking Waterson, because I think Karolina is going to go and knock poor Michelle out. And I take no pleasure saying that. Michelle Waterson is one of my favorite fighters.
Knock her out? When have you ever seen Karolina knock someone out?
Well, we're about to see it.
First time for everything, I guess. I'm taking Michelle Waterson, and I'm going to take her by...
Sorry, go ahead.
Huh?
Has Karolina never knocked anyone out? Never?
I mean... I'm just not familiar with a lot of, female fighters who are like one-shot knockout artists. We've only seen maybe, 3 to 5 of them in history, right?
Yeah, I guess what I'm leaning on is Waterson's so small. But I'm sorry, continue.
In 90% of them are Cyborg and Nunes knockouts. I think the only other knockout by a female that I'm aware of is in the UFC is the Andrade knockout of Karolina, right?
Yeah, good point.
But anyways, not to get sidetracked, I think that Michelle Waterson I think she's a little quicker. I think she comes from a little bit better camp. I like her game plan her last 2 fights. She's been able to fight larger fighters and implement a game plan, even getting larger fighters to the ground. And I expect her to kind of nullify some of what Karolina does and win I'm split decision again. # split decision.
# split podcast.
I see them, all these fights is very, very close this week. So what do we got next?
All right. We have Paul Craig versus, Zijukwu. Zijukwu. I think that's it.
I think it's Kennedy's. I'm not going to try it. I'll take your word for it. I'm actually going to take Kennedy Nzukwu. I just was doing, a little bit of research, obviously not overly familiar with him. familiar with Craig, but this guy's 6'5". He's an undefeated prospect. Looks like he's got lots of potential, and I'm just taking a flyer on him this week to beat Paul Craig. What do you think?
I have the same pick. I've got Zijukwu by unanimous decision.
Nice. Okay, brings us to, you got the next fight?
Yeah, we've got Sadiq Youssef versus Shaman Moraes. And
I love this fight.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's again a very close one. This card is one of the most evenly matched. I don't know if I've ever really seen a card, especially in the last few years, where there's so many fights that could go either way. Right. But I just think that Moraes is going to get it done. I think he's going to finish Youssef. I really do, and I think it's going to be in the second round.
I could not disagree more. I think Sadiq Youssef is one of the best prospects in the UFC. I think everything he's put out so far, he's looked explosive, he's looked physically gifted, and he's pretty much mowed through everybody that's been in front of him. So Shaman Moraes has a tendency to get in slugfest and gas a little bit. I think this will be a high-paced fight. And I think Moraes is going to fade, and I think Youssef is actually going to stop Moraes in the second round. So that'll be interesting to see, because I disagree on that one.
All right. That will be fun.
All right. Okay, we got a couple other good ones here. Do you see the Alexa Grasso fight?
Alexa Grasso fight.
It wasn't on the Wikipedia page.
Okay, that's what I have pulled up.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the. What about?
Wait, what happened with Grasso? Thanks a lot, Wikipedia, for absolutely nothing.
Well, the UFC's app doesn't have the full card loaded yet, and then Wikipedia is not listing that fight. But for some reason, she is fighting. This is great radio, by the way, for all the people listening.
Are you sure about this?
I'm not sure about it. Move on, and I'll keep looking. Desmond Green versus Ross Pearson. You got a thought on this?
Yep. Yeah. I do. I don't want to get too much into the weeds on these lower fights, but I got Desmond Green winning this one over Pearson.
Absolutely. Pearson's had a rough go. Desmond Green is, I think he has a 3.5-inch reach. So I'm taking him for sure. What about, you see the return of Ray Borg is on this card? Haven't seen Ray Borg in a while. He's a talented guy. Looking forward to seeing him. You got any thoughts on this fight?
Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he is now taking a last-minute replacement, right, against Kyler Phillips?
I believe so, yes.
And you're right. Wow, Wikipedia is really doing a horrible job here. But I do have Ray Borg defeating Kyler Phillips, and I think he's fighting at bantamweight. For those that don't know, this is Ray Borg fighting at bantamweight, not flyweight. I think that. Strangely enough, I think he's gonna do well at bantamweight. I really do. He's got a ton of heart. He fought so well against Mighty Mouse in that title fight. I thought he showed a lot of guts, and I've got him defeating Kyler Phillips via stoppage in the third.
Nice. I have the same thing. I'm taking Ray Borg via stoppage. I just think he's going to be too talented. I think Ray Borg still is a talented guy. He was one of the top guys in his division. Going up, like you said, I think he will translate fairly well. He's still going to be smaller than most guys, but he does have a great jiu-jitsu game and ground game, so I think that will play well for him. I'll take Ray Borg via third-round submission.
All right. Any other fights you wanted to talk about on this card before we delve into some of the breaking news?
I just wanted to say this. I'm not sure if it's happening or not, but it says Alexa Grasso, UFC Fight Night on ESPN2, March 30th, 2019, versus Marina Rodriguez, rescheduled from UFC Fortaleza. So it's not listed anywhere, but I am pulling it up that Alexis Grasso's squaring off with undefeated Marina Rodriguez. This is a great fight if it's happening. I'm not sure if it is, but
Yeah. Did Jessica Aguilar pull out?
no, this is a rescheduled fight from UFC Fortaleza in February. So they may just be throwing it on there last second. So we won't cover it, but
Okay. Yeah, the UFC's got to get their shit together. This is pretty embarrassing that they don't have their card set up.
yeah, this is Bellator.
This
This is
shit right here.
Bellator-esque, okay? So do you want to just move on to some listener questions then?
I think that'd be best.
All right. I got one queued
absolutely.
up right now, so we'll just jump right into them. One of the show favorites, Paul O'Kelly at Sparks F1 asks, with the one championship card this weekend featuring Alvarez and DJ, not forgetting Gary, of course, and all the pure BS we've been seeing from the UFC recently, are we about to enter an era where the UFC is not the most dominant organization in MMA? Go.
Yeah, it's a great question. You know what? I think that the short answer is no, but here's why. I would normally feel very tempted to say yes because one championship's been doing everything right, and the UFC has been doing a lot wrong lately. But if there's one thing that this kind of 2 year UFC Bellator battle has shown me, it's that as fun as Bellator and other major promotions like ONE can get, they really still are, a few notches below the UFC. That's just fact. So do I think we're entering into this era where the UFC is not the most dominant MMA organization? No. But ask me again in 3 years.
Fair. Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I don't see anyone really making up ground on the UFC. They still have, the best assortment of talent. They still have, the majority of the stars in MMA. They have the platform to build stars and put them in your North American living room, which other promotions don't have that kind of reach. So yeah, I don't see them necessarily gaining market share on the UFC, but I do see other organizations growing the market share in full for MMA, if that makes any sense. So not necessarily making up ground on the UFC, but growing MMA as a whole as they grow.
Absolutely. Okay, I've got one teed up here from our very, very good friend of the program, Smoothie357, at Smoothie251, and she asks, what's next for TJ Dillashaw, and does this give Cody a chance to step back into title contention? What do you think?
Well, what's next for TJ Dillashaw is probably, we won't see him fight for, 12 to 18 months. He'll probably, spend a bunch of money trying to clear his name on either a diuretic claim or a tainted supplement. And then he'll be back and challenging for the bantamweight title sometime in 2020, I'm sure. So that's what I expect out of TJ Dillashaw. What was the second part? I'm sorry. Oh, Cody. Yeah, Cody. I don't know what this means for Cody. It means that there's one less guy in the queue ahead of him, but Cody has been knocked out 3 times in a row. And, just because the guy who knocked him out, one of the guys who knocked him out, or technically both of the guys who knocked him out are dealing with USADA cases, doesn't necessarily mean that's the reason he lost. Cody is showing big gaps in his fight IQ. His camp that he comes from, the coaching situation has been fractured since the Cruz fight. And I think Cody has been probably the one suffering the most from that fractured relationship with the former coaches. He's listening to,
I would agree.
I think that that's what you're seeing with Cody. I don't necessarily think that TJ's a more gifted guy or whatever. I think that it comes down to Cody's a gifted guy, but Cody's the type of guy who needs very clear and concise direction. He needs to know in very simple terms what he needs to be doing to stay on track. And when he doesn't do that, he gets way off track and he's a marginal fighter. So I think that's Cody's problem. And I don't think that has anything to do with TJ Dillashaw, if I answered the question.
Yep, yep. I have to agree with you. I think that Cody's got problems that are a lot more serious than just T.J. Dillashaw, right? I mean, he has regressed against other fighters now. We've seen that, and granted, his last opponent, Pedro Munoz, is no slouch, but hardly no slouch at all. But Cody just keeps getting knocked out. He keeps
It's
fighting like it's a
yeah.
high school
It's
brawl.
in Cody's soul to be in a firefight. That's who he is. When he gets hit, he wants to hit you. But, as you age, and now that he's on film getting knocked out the same exact way 3 times, he's got, an uphill battle, I would feel.
Yep, totally agree. Do you have a
Yeah,
question
I've got
queued
one
up?
queued up here. Very tough one from Nick Becker at Becker93891. He says, with the new pay-per-view layout having to get ESPN Plus to watch a pay-per-view, how far do you think the numbers will drop over the next 3 to 4 pay-per-views? In his opinion, it wasn't their brightest idea, especially with Connor's quote-unquote retirement, which won't last long, but do you think they will change the model back by the end of the year? Did you follow all that?
Yes,
Cool.
I did.
So,
Um,
how do you
yeah.
think the pay-per-view buys will be affected in the next 3 to 4 events? And do you believe they'll switch back to the old model at some point?
Yeah, so two different questions. Do I think they'll switch back to the old model? No, I don't. I think that Dana is nothing if not stubborn, right?
Yeah.
And I think they're all in on this ESPN thing, as shown by this shocking pay-per-view ESPN Plus pay-per-view deal. I was extremely, extremely disappointed when I heard this news. I will not lie. I don't know how other people experience ESPN Plus, but it's been nothing short of catastrophic for me. I've got to restart it every round.
Personally, I've had no problems with it, honestly.
Okay. Okay, well,
But
good for you. I've
I'm
had
not
nothing
sticking up
but
for it,
problems.
but hashtag split decision.
Yeah, yeah. How far do I think the numbers will drop? How far can they drop? They're going to drop a lot.
Give me a
But,
percentage.
but, well, listen. See, here's the okay. I'll give you a percentage, but before I do, we're not going to hear that. We're not going to hear about that drop because Dana controls the news cycle, and they're going to do whatever they can to keep the numbers, exaggerated or just not say them at all. So I don't think we're going to notice the drop. But what's the drop going to be? 30, 40, or 50%. And yes, I think it will be that
I
catastrophic.
definitely think they've essentially put a paywall behind another paywall. So I don't,
Right. They're insane.
and they've also predetermined that they can change the price of the pay-per-view depending on who's on the card. So there's no guarantee that one month it'll be $60, the next month will be $100. So I think,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Connor's quote unquote retirement will assure we don't have any $100 cards for a while. But I would expect
Correct.
this to probably cost them at least 30% of their pay-per-view buys, thus forcing them to increase the price of pay-per-views to break even.
Yeah. That does not sound like business 101 savvy right there, but you're right. That's definitely what
They're
they're
like, you
thinking.
know what? If we sell them for twice as much, we only have to sell twice or half as many.
They'd better hope they sell half as many.
So
Yeah,
I don't think they'll
absolutely.
change back, but I certainly think there'll be at least a 30% drop in pay-per-view purchases. I can tell you that it's much more convenient for me to just go through my cable provider and then pay it on my bill at the end of the month than have them charge my card every Saturday night or whatever for certain events. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
that's
Absolutely.
just my first
Absolutely.
world problems. Let's move on to another question. I've got one from No Huddle Combat, and that's at No Huddle Combat. He says, do you think Yoel will ever get another shot at the belt considering his age and his 0-2 record versus Whitaker? You're the resident Yoel/Whitaker fan, so go ahead and tell me, do you think he'll get another title shot at any point?
Well, I think it's going to depend a lot on on Whitaker and how he does in the next 12 months, frankly, and obviously Yoel as well. Yoel's got to keep winning, and he's got that Jacare rematch coming up. That's no gimme. If Yoel keeps winning, and Whitaker keeps winning, I do think they'll make a third fight. But I'm a diehard Whitaker fan, as you know. I'm one of the biggest Whitaker fans. But I'm starting to get concerned about his ability to stay healthy. So I think he's got his work cut out for him. He's got to stay healthy starting right now. He hasn't fought in nearly a year, and it's looking like it's going to pass that year before he gets back in the cage. And I think that it's not at all far-fetched that Whitaker could lose to the winner of Stylebender Gastelum, especially following all these health problems. So in short, do I think that Yoel can get another title shot? Yes. Whether that's against Whitaker or someone else, it doesn't matter. As long as Yoel keeps winning, I think he's 2-3 fights at the most away from a title shot. And it doesn't matter if Whitaker's up 2-0.
No, he's certainly only 2 wins away. If he beats Jacare, that would set him back up for a number 1 contender match, in my opinion.
But you think, just to interrupt really quick, do you think that you think that even though the UFC has that general rule where they don't like to make third fights when someone's up 2-0, would they still, assuming Whitaker's still champion, do you agree with me they'd still make that third fight?
No, and I don't believe that Whitaker would take that fight after beating him twice. There's no reason for the champion to do that.
Oh, so we disagree.
I'm not sure what I suppose. I just don't think that if Whitaker's the champion, Romero's not getting another title shot. I think there's too many challengers. You just named 3 for Whitaker's belt. If none of those people beat Whitaker, that's at least 18 months out. By that time, Yoel doesn't have all that much time left, in my opinion. He's getting pretty old. What is he, 44 years old or something crazy?
Yeah, but Yoel's not a human. He's a mutant.
Agreed, but the guys who are coming up and contending for the belt, at some point they're going to gain enough ground to beat Yoel Romero when he's 45 years old and they're 27.
Yeah,
he struggles. He struggles with this cardio as it is. Could you imagine him fighting someone like, Stylebender or someone at this point? I mean, that'd be a crazy.
Oh, he didn't struggle with this cardio at 225.
Well, that's a long time ago, it feels like. All right, I got another question from The Last Moderate at THLAST Moderate 1. He says, who does Jones fight next? At first, Santos seemed to be inevitable, but it's been quiet from that front, and I think he thinks he heard they're trying to make Stipe versus John Jones, which he hates. What is going on with John Jones? Go.
Yeah, I also heard that rumor. That I believe that's from Ariel Helwani. Told Chael Sonnen that they were looking at Jones versus Stipe. I'm a little divided. I obviously do want Jones to go to heavyweight at some point, but I've really come around to the idea of him just fighting a lot and defending his light heavyweight belt against this new cream of the crop with, obviously he already did it with Lionheart. Santos should definitely be next. I really think that would be a great fight. Everyone is dismissing Santos very quickly. I don't agree at all. I think that could be extremely competitive. And I want to see Jones Santos. So I don't know exactly what's going on. Maybe they're trying to make John versus Stipe for a lead up to a John DC3 fight. But as I mentioned before, that fight no longer excites me like it used to. I just want John to defend that light heavyweight belt right now, and I want him to do it against Diego Santos.
I think that's obviously the fight to make. I'm not sure that it's going to be as competitive as you believe it to be, but Santos possesses the one-shot knockout power to keep it interesting for a while. So definitely think Santos has earned that shot, and there's enough intrigue with the stylistic matchup to put them in the cage together. Definitely want that fight. So you got another one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is from Uncle Yagi at Enzuki_101. He says, where does the winner of Gaethje Barboza go? Looking at the landscape of lightweight, it's almost like they're fighting for nothing. I honestly don't think Al or Cowboy will fight either of those guys. So what are they doing?
Great
Go.
question. The lightweight division has been broken for so long, and it's discouraging too because it truly is the most talented division in the UFC, probably the most talented division in UFC history. The lightweight division is just full of killers, and the fact that we can't get some of these top end matchups, is very frustrating. But it seems clear as day that the winner of Gaethje Barbosa should slot into maybe, probably the fourth slot in that division behind Khabib, Tony, Dustin, and since Connor's retired, we'll take him out. So we can say maybe Al is 4, and then the winner of this fight could be slotted in at 5. So they're not too far off, but like you said, at this point, where can you go with them? I think Justin Gaethje versus Donald Cowboy Cerrone is a fight you can make if they both win. I think it makes a lot of sense. Cowboy's going to fight anybody. He's a crowd favorite. Justin Gaethje's kind of the same way. That would be fireworks and easily a sellable main event. If Barbosa loses to Gaethje this weekend, I think he takes a big step back. I think he probably drops back to probably somewhere around 9 or 10, and probably the last chance he has to kind of make another jump into the top 5, in my opinion. We've seen him beaten by a handful of guys already. So if Gaethje, who I consider to be the underdog versus him, beats him, I think that's a bad look for him. Like you said, I don't think that Al Iaquinta is going to fight Justin Gaethje if they both win, even though they both have some heat and that fight makes a ton of sense. So I don't know. For me, I would say Gaethje should, if Gaethje wins, he should fight the winner either way of that matchup. But can you force, Al to take that fight? I don't know. Tough question.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. To echo that, I would say the winner of Edson versus Gaethje, regardless, needs to fight the winner of Al versus Cowboy. And let's not forget. And I know it's very Al's super cool, and he's got a really nice cult following, and I like Al, but I still haven't fully forgiven him for his scumbag moves with Gaethje when he took UFC the fight against Gaethje. It was officially announced. Al went on radio shows and did interviews promoting the fight. A few days later, he started, he said, "Hey, I don't want this fight. I don't want this," and he just backed out without giving any kind of specific injury. And I thought it was really lame. He started then talking crap about Gaethje, saying you're a walking, CTE case after he'd pulled out of the fight. And I think that he should absolutely be forced to fight Gaethje if Gaethje wins.
Yeah, I don't know what they're going to do. That division is certainly a logjam at the top. We don't know what's going on with Tony Ferguson, who is truly the number one contender. If Max Holloway wins that fight versus Dustin Poirier, which he could do, that throws even another kink in the plan. So God only knows what's going on with the 155-pound division. But to piggyback on that,
go ahead.
You done with that one? All right, to piggyback on that, one of our show favorites, 604 MMA at 604 MMA, asks a similar question. He says, if you were both matchmakers, what are the matches to make at welterweight to get a clear title picture in terms of 2 fighters that deserve it the most and 2 other fighters that deserve to be in a contenders match? I specifically chose welterweight because there's a huge long jam there. So that's why he chose that, similar to 155 with a lot of top-end matchups. So who would you match up in the title fight, and then who would you match up in the number one contender fight at welterweight?
Yeah, that is a great question. So I definitely think that Usman and Colby have a lot of heat. Colby, apparently still does have that that interim belt, honestly, I can't even keep track anymore. It's so unorganized on whether or not he has the belt. I know that he had it. Then he was told he was being stripped before 228. Then he was not stripped after 228. Then the UFC made a new website and said he was stripped, and that was literally how they did it. They said this is a new website, and now he's stripped. Now, then Dana later on said he wasn't stripped. So, who knows if he's got a belt? I have no idea. But I think that Usman versus Colby is definitely the fight to make for the title. And then I had to give a lot of thought to this, this number one contender fight. But I think that, Tyron Woodley, let's not forget, he was the 4-time defending champion at welterweight. People forget
that last fight
time
did not look good. It did not warrant a rematch either.
I mean, Usman didn't even. Yeah, sure, but it's not like Usman got a stoppage, nor did he even get remotely close. He won by decision. So, I mean, I think that Woodley should definitely be in that title eliminator, and I think you put him in against Jorge Gamebred Masvidal.
Former ATT teammates, huh? No, I think it's
And now that's assuming Pettis versus Masvidal doesn't happen. Obviously,
I don't see how it can be anyone else. It has to be Ponzinibbio.
Oh,
Ponzinibbio versus Woodley. The winner of that can have the next shot after Colby, because we have to get the Colby Covington saga over with. We need to see if someone can shut him up or if he's going to be a champion. We need to know. I think I know, but we got to see it so we can just stop with this. Figure it out once and for all. So,
yeah. I will respectfully disagree on giving Ponzinibbio that spot. I know he's a cheat. He's an eye poke cheat. I call him Ponzi scheme. I've seen him do it too many times. He's done it too many times in a row. It's every fight.
He's a savvy all he does. Real savvy.
I mean, he's one. The truth is, I don't like to get personal here, and I like most fighters. He is definitely one of my least favorite fighters, and I wish him nothing but UFC failure.
All right, you got any more questions for us today, Phil?
Yes, I do. We got a ton of great questions, actually. So, this one, I'm just trying to go through them real fast. This is from Mary Voles Cummins, and this is sort of like the elephant in the room, I think, that we have to address. She said, what is your opinion of the sexual assault allegations against Conor McGregor, and was it a coincidence that his retirement, which she puts in quotes, was announced several hours before this hit the mainstream media? Now, I think, I first of all, before you even answer, I just want to say, I don't think that either of us want to talk about the allegations in much detail, simply because it's so new and we just don't know anything. But do you think that the retirement announcement, Fight Geek, was connected to the sexual assault allegations?
Yes. I mean, I don't see how they couldn't be connected. Otherwise, it's just a random, coincidence, which obviously it wasn't. Conor McGregor is a very grandiose star. Since he's been with the UFC, he's probably the most grandiose star we've ever seen. He likes to have big press conferences. He likes to be the center of attention. He likes to wear nice clothes and have sound bites and be on camera. I just find it strange that if he truly was going to retire, that he wouldn't retire in a way that allowed us to celebrate him in the appropriate fashion based on who he's been to MMA. It felt rushed. It feels not thought out, and coming on the heels of the news we heard from the New York Post report or whatever. It does make sense. I don't know if it was something maybe the UFC asked him to do to distance himself while he deals with this, or if it's something his PR team came up with to try and change the narrative. I really don't know, but I certainly don't believe that it's a coincidence.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, neither of us are remotely speculating on
Neither
on
of
this
us are
because we
legal
just don't
counsel.
know. This right, and this news just hit folks today, several hours ago. We don't have enough information to truly comment on this. One thing I wanted to say is that a lot of people on Twitter, Fight Geek, are saying it's ridiculous to assume that his retirement announcement had anything to do with these allegations. And all I have to say is if that's your opinion, I want you to very calmly take your right hand, open it as if you're, asking for food. I want you to smack yourself in the face as hard as you can. Are you bleeding yet? If you're not bleeding, please repeat. Until you break your nose, you're an idiot.
That answers that then, huh? So either way, it seems unfortunate that we won't get to, at this point, it doesn't look like we're going to get to see that second chapter to Conor's career. We got to see his rise. Never really got to see how he dealt with adversity. Was looking for. No, I know, but he's a young man. I mean, he still had, if he wanted, a whole second half of his career.
Well, yeah, we did. McGregor
right some
Diaz
wrongs within the cage and get better and show some different parts of his game and grow himself as a fighter. We've seen that in many guys, a la Michael Bisping, and guys who get, have a second stage of their career. It's unfortunate that at this point it doesn't look like we're going to get to see that second stage of Conor's career. It's just going to be kind of him on the rise in his 20 and then flaming out at this point. So it's kind of unfortunate. I really enjoyed watching his rise. If this is a true retirement, or if he's facing something that will take him away, I feel sad about that, and it is what it is, I guess. So, yeah, we got a minute or two. Let's go.
Yep. I've got one last question for you. Do we have time? All right. This is from Pat Tobin. That's at Pat_Tobin. And I like this question a lot. Which UFC fighter would benefit the most from going up a weight division? It got Whitaker a title. Masvidal just knocked out Till. Pettis KO's Wonder Boy. And then he goes on to give potential answers, which I don't want to give to you because that makes the question too easy. So who do you think would benefit the most from going up in a weight division?
For a lot of guys, but if I'm going to go out on a limb, I'm going to say that Kevin Lee will look better at 170 than he ever did at 155. So Kevin Lee's my answer there.
Okay, and I, by the way, I agree with you. I think he's going to look very good. Certainly, at least initially, I think he's going to beat RDA. So I think that's a good answer. I'm going to go a little. I'm going to go a little further here, and I'm going to say. I'm going to say. And this is tough, man. I'm going to say Max Holloway, and everyone's going to jump on me here because they're going to say, well, Max Holloway, he's got a 13-fight win streak. What are you talking about, Phil? I understand. But we all know how hard that weight cut was for Max. And yes, he made it at 231, and he looked amazing against Ortega. But I just think that him fighting at lightweight is what he's destined to do. I think he's going to have a great fight with Poirier. I think Poirier is going to show the heart of a champ. He's going to be so brave in there. And then Poirier is going to get slept. Or not, or TKO'd. I'm being over dramatic.
Yeah, hard to disagree with that one.
Holloway at 155 is going to be so much fun, and I just can't wait. All right, I think that's it. Take it away, Fight Geek.
Hey guys, as usual, you can find us on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, Stitcher, and Buzzsprout. I'm at the Fight Geek MMA. He's at Phil, the MMA dude. We are at Split_Podcast. That's 4 words. The Split Decision Podcast. Thanks for tuning in this time. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Peace.